This episode of Hooked on Wild Waters is brought to you by GoPro, Bending Branches, Jackson Kayak, Z-Man Fishing. It's early in the morning on Yellow Jacket Shoals. The harsh river begins to come to life as Drew prepares for his wild water adventure.
All right, clearly I love wild places and unpredictability, and I've got my friend Todd Unzicker with me, one of the most unpredictable guys I know, in a good way, of course. And we've caught a lot of fish together. We're gonna do it here today. And you finally got here. It's about time, dude.
Dude, I came all the way from Raleigh-Durham, man. I mean, you know, I'm not that late.
Whatever, all right, fine. But either way, tell us, Todd, what do you think, man? What are some of the unpredictable things we could see out here in the Flint River?
Well, we're gonna go down Yellow Jacket Shoals, Drew, which is one of the hairiest shoals in all of Middle Georgia. You and I have taken several spills down there, but I'm also planning on catching a bunch of big fish, too.
Exactly. So one thing that's unique about Yellow Jacket Shoals is there's actually a private section of this shoal, and you got to be aware because hardly anywhere you'll see a private section of navigable waterways. Now, up in the North Georgia mountains or places like that, like trout waters that are very small, you can only wade, yeah, you see private sections, but it's very rare to have a navigable waterway that's private, but we're dealing with that here, so we're gonna have to pick up our rods, no longer fish, and go beyond it. So
yeah, guy owns property on both sides of the waterway, and so we're just gonna paddle through there and hopefully make it down one piece.
You don't get shot. You don't get shot. You know, I've seen them shoot up in the air before, so they're serious about it, and we're gonna respect that, of course, and obey the law there. But you know, there's also a really heavy chance of rain today, 80% chance of rain. This is no water park, folks. This isn't a big lake that's you know, controlled. This is wild water. We've got rain, we've got rapids. We got guys on the bank that are, you know, looking at their property, watching if we're gonna fish their private section. So it's gonna be crazy, wild. Let's go do it, Todd.
Let's do it, man.
As they set off, Drew and Todd quickly realize that catching fish today on Yellow Jacket Shoals won't be so easy.
Yeah, we're trying to catch a bigger fish now. I'm throwing bigger baits, and I've got some deeper water, so that tells me there might be some bigger fish here. Lou is still excited about every cast. She's not lost her enthusiasm, even though I'm a little bit frustrated.
I like to use these shoals and just kind of a natural break. And I can fish these holes where these fish will often stack up and hide behind the rocks in the pools waiting for stuff to come in the runs. I'm gonna pick up my favorite lure, and that's a buzz bait. If I can fish with anything and catch them, it's the buzz bait. I love how these fish are so aggressive. They'll come up and just nail this thing as it comes across. Let's hope we can do it right now. Fish on! Good fish! Good fish, Drew! Boy, he's fighting great. Woo! That's a good one right there. That's what we came for. These fish may not get as big as largemouth, but they fight a lot better than them. Probably only comparable to the smallmouth. Shoal bass, Drew!
While paddling, Todd drops a lure into the river. Unfortunately, as he tries to retrieve it, his microphone gets drowned in water, shorting it out. On the upside, though, Todd does find his lure.
Drew, Gregory here with the Yakin tip. You know, a lot of people out there think that when you fall out of a kayak, oh man, you've done something wrong, or it's a big mistake, or something's wrong with this kayak, you know, and you want to blame the manufacturer because it couldn't possibly be us, right? We could never make a mistake. But even myself, I mean, even people that are out there all the time, we make mistakes and we flip out. Even recently, that happened to me. It doesn't happen often anymore, thank goodness, but when it does, don't worry, especially if you're a beginner, it's okay. If you don't want to lose anything, strap it down. If you don't want it to get wet, put it in a dry bag. That's what we always say as a beginner. I'm sure you actually remember, right, when you first got onto a bicycle. When you got on that bike for the first time, you fell off the bike, and you know, maybe you had to get training wheels. It took some time to learn how to ride that bike. Well, kayaking is no different. Sometimes you'll fall out, and that's part of it. You know, if you learn how to ski or snowboard or wakeboard, you fall. That's part of it. But for some reason, we freak out and think something's wrong or we did something wrong when we fall out. But sometimes it's just part of the learning process. So today, I'm actually going to get out of the water and teach you now how to get back in, because since we know it's going to happen, we need to be prepared for, you know, that circumstance. So let's get to it. Well, first and foremost, if you're in a shallow water fishery, then of course you can just stand up and hop back in the kayak and don't freak out. And one of the things you want to do is actually, if you're leaning over and you're about to flip out of a kayak, the number one thing you want to do is actually learn to sort of jump out. Obviously, you want to know what's below you. You don't want to necessarily stand up when you jump out. If you're in a rapid, you actually want to fall out of the kayak and have your feet up in the air, because you don't want your feet to get entangled on some rocks down below in some rapids where you could, you know, entrap your ankle or something. But if you know it's safe and shallow, you would much rather just go ahead and jump out of the kayak and fall out than have it completely flip over, and now all of your gear and everything is in the water, it's wet, it's destroyed, or it's ruined. So you always want to be prepared for that. Once you start tipping, go ahead and hop out. Some people will grab the handle and they'll actually pull the kayak over with them as they go, just trying to save it. But it's not going to happen. So once you're in the water, unfortunately, you're in the water now, and let's say it's over your head. You're in the ocean, or you're in a lake, you're somewhere in a deep spot of a river. What you want to do is swim back to your kayak, don't panic. You've got your PFD on, of course, right? Which you always want to do. That's another important safety tip, to have your PFD on. Because if you get knocked out, you can't do anything, right? So you want to have this on. You fall out, no big deal. You're in the water, it's cold, it's wet, it's miserable, whatever. You then want to paddle over to, or, you know, swim over to your kayak and take it from the very center and grab onto it from the middle, the dead middle of this thing, and simply do basically a pull-up or a push-up, rather a push-up on the side of the kayak. Push up with your hands and kick with your feet and launch your entire torso on the middle of this kayak, so you're broadside across the kayak. So you're perpendicular with the kayak. And then you can simply spin your body on the kayak and waddle up there and get the rest of your body up there. And now you're back in, and then you can paddle around and find all the rest of your gear and grab it and move on from there, so you can continue to conquer the wild waters. But you know, of course, the important thing is, at the end of the day, you're alive, you're safe, everything's gonna be fine. Move on. I'm getting a little frustrated here. Breaking rods, missing fish. Todd just went down a rapid and lost the rod in the bottom of the river, so I hate to see that happen. I'm gonna actually take this off and take my mic off and go help him swim down to the bottom and find it. Because, I mean, obviously we know it's right here below this rapid. We can find it. Oh, man. This is Gregory with another Angler's Edge tip. You know, when I was a kid, my dad was pretty hard on me, but I'm thankful he was now, because every time I would go out and mow the lawn, if I had 1 or 2 blades of grass and it was, you know, not mowed, he would say, hey, you missed some blades over here. I'm like, come on, it's a couple blades. But he paid attention to detail, and now, as I'm an adult, I pay attention to detail, and I feel like that's helped me on the wild waters catching big fish. You can get away with poorly rigged baits to catching small fish, you can get away with it. But big fish, I'm telling you, they are smarter, they're older, they're wiser, and they can point it out, and their instincts kick in, and they realize something doesn't look right with that bait. I'm not gonna go and eat that. So one of the details I like to do that helps me catch more fish is add a stinger hook to any large baits where they may not get the entire bait in their mouth on the first swipe. So this has to do with large baits like the Z-Man Streaks XL, which I have here, and the Z-Man Swimmer swim bait. I'm gonna rig one of these stinger hooks up and show you exactly how I do it and the detail I use to make sure it stays very hidden right here so they don't notice it's there. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is grab a treble hook and actually cut one of the barbs off of it. And you wanna make sure you cut the right barb because if you cut the wrong one, you won't end up with this nice cradle like I have right here. So this is eventually gonna cradle my swim bait right underneath it behind the main hook. Then you'll take the 3 pieces of surgical tubing, you'll grab one of them and go ahead and stick it right over the eye of this hook. So I got that prepped. Then you lay it down. I'm gonna grab my swim bait here and go ahead and rig it up. I'm gonna put my point right in the dead middle, come out just a ½ inch out, pull that Elastec plastic from the Z-Man bait up. I love how it stretches right over that weight. Now I got that coming out right dead center. Okay, I got that prepped. Then you're gonna take the piece of surgical tubing that's over the eyelet of your hook and slide it on. Now it's kind of prepped hanging there. Then you're gonna take the piece of surgical tubing that's over the eyelet of your hook and slide it on. Now it's kind of prepped hanging there. Then you're gonna go ahead and rig your bait how you normally would. Come right out the top. You can see that seam where they made this. You wanna come right on that center seam line. If you don't have your baits dead centered, they're not gonna swim right, they're not gonna look right, they're not gonna fool that big fish. My other piece of surgical tubing, I'll put it over the top. You don't have to put this final one on. There we go. Now, I actually like, when I'm throwing swim baits, I don't like how it's pointed down into the bait so much. If you want it to be more weedless, that's fine, but I actually like to straighten it out a little bit. Let's see if I can just do that with these buck splizzers here. Probably can do it. It's a stout hook. Good enough. Straighten it out a little bit. But now I can actually pinch those 3 pieces together underneath there, and I can put my bait exactly how I want it. And you really can hardly tell that's there. You know, it's kind of hidden. And that's gonna fool those big fish. And more importantly, if they swipe it from the side, they're gonna get hooked even on the stinger hook, or if they hit the main hook, you have another hook in them, so the chances of them getting off are less likely. So once again, pay attention to detail. Hey, my dad did it to me when I was a kid, and I'm helping you out now, paying it forward. So this has been your Angler's Edge tip. I'm Drew Gregory. These are Wild Waters. I'm gonna go tie this on and go fishing. Woo! Well, we made it down past the posted area, and we've got to some wildlife management area. We've been hopping around the rocks, and I'm getting real frustrated. I mean, Lou's knocking me over, making me slip and fall. I'm getting banged up. The fish are not biting well. The weather's getting crazy and eerie. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I honestly have no idea what to say. I've fished a lot of rivers, but this is just very rare that the fish are just this cut off. So,
unfortunately, due to how wild the waters were that day, Drew's river adventure had to be cut short.
well, this was definitely an adventure on wild waters, to say the least. You know, the Flint River, we talked about being unpredictable, the hazards, the rain, the rapids, you just never know what's gonna happen. And certainly on Yellow Jacket Shoals, I proved it. I mean, even an experienced kayak angler like myself, it can happen. You can flip over, things can go wrong. And I believe everyone today on the trip lost or broke something. I broke a couple of rods. We had, cameras, messed up, mics messed up. I mean, it was definitely a cluster out there. But that's what happens. And to be honest with you, it's cool when we catch a ton of big fish on the show and it's exciting. But this is reality. This is reality, what happened today, what you guys saw. I've definitely learned lessons from the rivers, and that's what it's taught me, that this is more of the reality of everyday life. And when we realize that's the reality, we know it's expected, that's what's gonna happen, then we're not just such a big stress ball when it happens, and don't get too frustrated because it's just gonna happen.
Today, nothing that memorable, but certainly we had lots of just mishaps and lots of things I never would have thought would have happened normally. We lost some gear, we tipped over, we had some storms coming, big lightning, but we also caught a lot of fish as well. And so that was a lot of fun.
At the end of the day, Todd and I had a great paddling trip, and we did catch some fish, even though our trip got cut short. So there's definitely some positives to take away. I mean, the spider lilies were beautiful. The entire river in general is just gorgeous. And I'm with a good friend, having a good time, sharing some laughs, even through the frustrating times. And it just makes me really, really appreciate special places like this. And this really is the entire reason why I'm hooked on wild waters.